All right, so get this. We're going deep today.
Ooh, deep into what?
A housing discrimination complaint filed with HUD.
Okay, so we're talking like legal documents and stuff.
Yeah, heavy stuff, but trust me, this one's got some twists and turns.
Yeah, I mean, these complaints are always so interesting.
Interesting how,
Well, they really show how, like, these big systemic problems actually affect people's lives.
you're right, it's not just theory, it's real people dealing with real consequences.
Exactly.
And in this case, we're talking about Nicholas Miles.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that name.
He's a homeowner in Baltimore who says he was treated unfairly
Unfairly how?
because of his race, specifically when it comes to this historic tax credit program.
Right. Those programs are supposed to be a good thing.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Encourage people to fix up old houses, get some tax breaks.
But Miles is saying that this program and the agreement that comes with it was actually used against him.
Oh, wow, so like a bait and switch kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You think you're getting a good deal, but then it turns into a nightmare.
And to make matters worse, he's not just pointing the finger at one person or group.
Ayuda.
He's calling out both the developer, Historic East Baltimore Community Action Coalition, Inc.,
Right.
and the seller, Eager Street Development 28, LLC.
So he's saying they were both in on it.
Yeah, he's alleging it was like a systemic issue within these organizations, not just one bad apple.
That's a bold claim.
So let's get down to what Miles is actually accusing them of.
Okay, lay it on me.
He's saying they hit him with a lawsuit to enforce this historic tax credit agreement.
Okay.
But other homeowners in similar situations weren't sued.
So he's basically saying they singled him out because he's black.
That's exactly it.
And if that's true, it really makes you wonder if there was a pattern of going after certain homeowners based on their race.
Right. Were they holding Miles to a different standard?
Seems like it.
And get this.
Yeah.
Miles is also claiming that they forced him to make way more extensive home repairs than other homeowners.
Hold on, really?
Yeah, and specifically homeowners who weren't black.
Whoa, can you imagine having to jump through all those extra hoops just because of the color of your skin?
It's crazy, right?
That's a serious accusation.
And it gets even wilder.
Wilder, how?
Miles even says he was treated differently in, like, everyday interactions.
Like,
He claims he wasn't greeted as warmly as other homeowners.
oh, wow. So it's like they were trying to make him feel unwelcome in the community.
Exactly.
It's one thing to face legal action, but to feel ostracized in your own neighborhood, that's a whole other level of awful.
Now, it's important to remember that these are just allegations at this point.
Right. Innocent until proven guilty.
But you got to admit, when you put all these details together,
Yeah, it starts to look pretty bad.
like a very clear pattern of unequal treatment.
It's like putting a puzzle together, and the picture that emerges is pretty troubling.
And to add another layer of complexity to this whole thing,
What's that?
the complaint states that the discrimination started back on April 13th, 2017.
Okay.
And it says it's continuing.
Whoa, so we're not talking about a one-time thing, potentially years of ongoing mistreatment.
Exactly.
That adds a whole other dimension to this case.
This isn't just about a legal battle.
It's about someone's right to live peacefully in their own home.
And it really makes you question how we ensure fairness and equity in housing, even with laws like the Fair Housing Act of 1968.
You would think that law would protect people from this exact kind of discrimination.
It's supposed to, but as we're seeing, it's clearly not always enough.
So what happens next?
Well, that's the story for part 2.
Yeah, I'm already hooked.
We're going to dive into the legal side of things, explore what this complaint could mean for Miles' respondents, and maybe even the future of fair housing practices in Baltimore.
Sounds intense.
It is. Stick with us. Okay, so we've heard Miles' side of things, and it's pretty heavy.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I'm curious what happens now. I mean, he filed this complaint with HUD,
Right.
but what does that actually do?
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
By filing that complaint, Miles is basically asking HUD to step in and investigate.
Right. So they're like the referees.
Exactly, making sure everyone's playing by the rules, and those rules are set by the Fair Housing Act.
Right, you mentioned that earlier, the Fair Housing Act.
Yeah.
Can you remind me what exactly it says and how it applies to this whole situation?
Sure, it's basically like a shield.
A shield.
Yeah, protecting people from discrimination when they're looking for a place to live, or even just trying to live peacefully in their own home.
Gotcha.
So the Fair Housing Act says you can't discriminate against someone because of their race or color or religion,
Okay.
their national origin, sex, whether they have kids or a disability.
So that definitely seems relevant here.
Right.
Miles is saying he was treated differently because of his race.
Exactly. And according to the complaint, that difference in treatment included being unfairly targeted with a lawsuit,
Right.
forced to make way more extensive repairs than others had to, and even facing hostility in his day-to-day interactions.
Yeah.
All of that could be considered violations of the Fair Housing Act.
Wow. Okay, so Knowing all that, what does Miles want to happen?
Hmm.
What's he hoping for here?
He's hoping that HUD will see what he sees, a pattern of discrimination, and take action to make things right.
Okay, how would they do that?
Well, there are a few ways it could go down.
Yeah.
First, they might try to get Miles and the respondents to sit down and work things out.
Oh, so like a settlement?
Yeah, kind of. They call it conciliation.
Conciliation.
Yeah, where they try to come to a compromise.
So what would that look like?
They might agree on things like financial compensation for Miles,
Okay.
changes in the respondents' policies to prevent this from happening again, or maybe even mandatory training for their staff, so everyone's on the same page about fair housing practices.
That makes sense.
It could be a good outcome, you know?
But what if they can't agree? I mean, what if the respondents just say, nope, we did nothing wrong?
That's a possibility, right? It's
Yeah.
their word against his.
Then what?
Well, then HUD investigators would have to really dig in.
Dig in how?
They'd look at all the evidence, interview people, maybe even visit the properties involved to get the full picture.
Right.
And if they find enough evidence to support Miles's claims, they can issue something called a charge of discrimination.
Ooh, that's some serious.
Yeah, it means HUD is formally accusing the respondents of breaking the law.
So did they go to jail then?
Not straight to jail, but it could lead to a kind of mini trial.
A mini trial.
Yeah, they call it an administrative hearing.
Okay.
A judge would hear both sides, examine the evidence, and decide if the respondents actually violated the Fair Housing Act.
So like their day in court.
Exactly. And if the judge sides with Miles, the respondents could be facing some pretty hefty consequences.
Like what?
They might have to pay damages, change their policies, or even be forced to take steps to promote fair housing in the future.
Wow, so there's a lot on the line here.
Absolutely, for everyone involved.
This case could really set a precedent for how these kinds of complaints are handled going forward.
No doubt it's a big deal. But let's not forget about the human side of things.
Right.
What does it do to a person to feel targeted and unwelcome in their own community?
Yeah, that's got to take a toll.
Housing discrimination isn't just about legal stuff, you know? It's about people's lives, their sense of security, their belonging.
It's heartbreaking, and it can affect whole communities, too.
Exactly. Discrimination can tear apart neighborhoods, fuel segregation, limit opportunities for entire groups of people. It's a domino effect.
And the fact that Miles says this discrimination is ongoing makes it even more urgent.
Right. We're not just talking about a past wrong that needs to be fixed. This is a current problem that needs to be stopped.
I'm starting to see how big this issue really is.
It goes way beyond one house or one homeowner.
It's about the very fabric of our communities.
And the promise of equal opportunity for all.
But it's good to know that we at least have laws and systems in place to push back against discrimination.
There's always hope, and there are things we can all do to make a difference. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Okay, shoot.
Based on what you've learned so far, do you think Miles has a strong case?
That's a tough one to answer,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, we've only heard one side of the story.
Right.
But the details he's alleging are pretty serious. I'm definitely leaning towards believing him.
It's a lot to process, for sure. But that's why we have this process, so both sides can be heard, the evidence can be examined, and hopefully justice can be served.
I agree, and I'm glad we're doing this deep dive. It's helping me understand how complex this case really is.
Me too. And in the final part, we're going to explore some of the bigger issues here and talk about what can be done to prevent these situations from happening in the first place.
Sounds good. I can't wait. All right, so we've heard all about Nicholas Miles's complaint. We've talked about the Fair Housing Act and even imagined how things might play out in court.
Right. It's been quite a journey.
It has. But now I'm thinking about the bigger picture.
The bigger picture, how so?
Like, what can we actually learn from this case?
Yeah.
And what can we do to stop this from happening again?
You're hitting on the most important questions here. This isn't just a story about one house or one homeowner.
Right. It's about so much more.
It's about these deep-rooted issues in our society.
Like what?
Like systemic discrimination, implicit bias, the struggle to create truly equitable communities.
So let's talk solutions. How do we actually fix this?
Well, first, we got to make sure the laws we already have are actually working.
Like the Fair Housing Act?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good law, but it needs to be enforced.
So what does that look like?
Well, for starters, giving HUD the resources they need to investigate these complaints thoroughly and hold violators accountable.
So more funding for HUD, more investigators making sure they've got the teeth to enforce the law.
Exactly. But it's not just about punishing people after the fact.
What else can we do?
We need to focus on prevention, too.
Okay.
Education training, raising awareness, not just for landlords and real estate agents, but for everyone.
So like teaching people about their rights under the Fair Housing Act.
Exactly. And making sure people understand what discrimination actually looks like so they can recognize it and report it.
I see. So if everyone's aware of the problem, it's less likely to happen in the first place.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture where discrimination just isn't tolerated.
And what about groups that are already working on this problem?
You mean like community organizations and advocacy groups?
Yeah, they're often the ones dealing with these issues directly, right?
They're absolutely essential. They offer support to victims, educate the public, and fight for policies that promote fair housing.
So it sounds like we need a multi-pronged approach here.
Exactly. Stronger enforcement, widespread education-empowered communities.
All working together.
You got it. It's not going to be easy, and it won't happen overnight.
There's got to happen.
We can't afford to be complacent. Housing is a fundamental human right.
Absolutely.
Everyone deserves to live in a safe, decent, and affordable home without facing discrimination.
Well said. This deep dive has been really eye-opening for me.
For me, too.
It's a harsh reminder of the problems we still face.
But it's also a reminder that we have the power to change things.
So what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all of this?
I want them to understand that knowledge is power.
Okay, I like that.
The more we understand about these issues, the better equipped we are to fight them and create real change.
So stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop fighting for what's right.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the world of housing discrimination.
It's been a great conversation.
It has. We've covered a lot of ground today, but hopefully we've sparked some important conversations along the way.
I hope so.
And to everyone listening out there, thank you for joining us. Remember, your voice matters. Use it to advocate for fairness, justice, and equal opportunity for all.